Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, bracing for a travel nightmare. Passengers scramble at airports across the country ahead of the cancellation of thousands of daily flights by the FAA, a 10% reduction to ease the strain on air traffic controllers during the shutdown. Plus, how passengers can protect themselves when booking that upcoming holiday travel.
I'm Rachel Scott here at Reagan's National Airport with a look at which airports and which airlines will be impacted.
3 days after scoring a touchdown during Monday Night Football, NFL player Marshawn Kneeland is dead at 24 by apparent suicide following a car chase and a crash on the highway.
I'm Will Reeve, and tonight I'll have the details of what Kneeland's family is calling a mental health crisis and the last message he sent to his loved ones.
President Trump strikes a deal to lower the cost of some obesity drugs, including Wegovy and Zepbound, to as low as $150 a month.
I'm Mary Bruce at the White House with more on today's announcement that could significantly expand access to these popular medications.
Democratic stalwart Nancy Pelosi, the first and only female Speaker of the House, announces her retirement after decades as one of the most powerful women in U.S. politics. We look at her legacy and the future of the Democratic Party. And weeks after the Supreme Court heard arguments on the Voting Rights Act, our Steve Osinsami takes an in-depth look at why some say that law is no longer needed, even while those who fought for it disagree. That's tonight's Prime Focus.
How many times were you arrested?
Arrested? Oh, in my whole life, 19. I've been to jail 19 times, and they're all my trophies.
They're all your trophies?
Yes.
So you have a record?
Yes, see it.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
19 arrests, which she calls her trophies. We're looking forward to that story. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us tonight. We begin with the major concern for travelers as the longest government shutdown on record is now poised to wreak havoc in the skies. Beginning tomorrow, the FAA will put extreme measures in place, which could lead to the cancellation of thousands of flights every day. It's all because of a critical shortage of air traffic controllers, exacerbated by a lack of pay during the shutdown and sick calls. 40 major U.S. airports are expected to be impacted. New York City to Chicago to Los Angeles and Atlanta, the busiest airport in the world. Tonight, airlines are scrambling to make last-minute changes, but there's real concern that so many Americans will be left stranded as flights are canceled. The reduction in flights comes just a couple of weeks before the start of a very busy holiday travel season. What are your rights if your flight gets canceled? And one airline CEO suggests buying a second flight. Should you consider that? The Points Guy tells us how you can protect yourself coming up. But first, ABC's Rachel Scott leads us off from Reagan Airport in Washington.
Tonight, a mad scramble for passengers at airports across the country before airlines start canceling thousands of daily flights. The Trump administration says to ease the strain on air traffic controllers from the government shutdown.
I was able to get on the flight early before some of the delays started, so I'm just getting home before it happens.
I'm so glad I'm flying out today.
How stressful is it for you as a traveler?
Stressful. Check the, I guess, the wait time at the lines today beforehand and just worried about it. So keep your fingers crossed.
40 airports will be impacted, including the country's busiest, from Atlanta to Los Angeles to Chicago. New York's JFK, Miami, Detroit, and DCA in Washington. Tonight, Delta Airlines says they'll cancel 170 flights tomorrow, American Airlines 220, and United Airlines says they'll slash just under 200. Passengers getting notifications like this one. Caitlin Ladner in Wisconsin had planned to fly to Raleigh tomorrow to surprise her parents.
It was definitely, disappointing. We had been planning it for a while, and it's pretty upsetting.
In a since-deleted social media post, the CEO of Frontier Airlines with this stark message, writing, "If your flight is canceled, your chances of being stranded are high, so I would simply have a backup ticket on another airline." Today, the president asked if Americans should feel safe flying, with busy holiday travel just weeks away.
That's why they're cutting, yeah. It's a fair question. Sean Duffy announced they're cutting in certain areas 10%, and they want to make sure it's 100% safe. That's why they're doing it.
Officials say the shortage of air traffic controllers who missed their second full paycheck today has reached a tipping point, pushing them to take unprecedented action, reducing flights by 4% tomorrow and ramping up to 10% over the next several days.
Safety first, whatever they have to do.
Day 37 of the government shutdown, and demand is surging. Long lines at food banks and drive-through food distribution centers from California to Ohio.
Okay, here you go.
Judge John McConnell rebuking the Trump administration, accusing the White House of trying to withhold benefits for, quote, political reasons, pointing to the president's own words on social media, saying payments will be given only when Democrats open up government.
Rachel Scott joins us now from Reagan International. And Rachel, these flight cancellations come as a judge has now issued a major order with regard to SNAP. What does the administration have to do by tomorrow?
Yeah, well, the administration says they plan to appeal this ruling, but that judge was very clear. He said that the administration needs to provide these benefits to the 42 million Americans that rely on them by tomorrow. So this does leave so many of those Americans now in limbo. Meanwhile, Lindsay, back here at DCA, there are so many airports across the country that are now bracing for even more cancellations tomorrow. Right now, so far, at least 700 flights have been canceled already, but that number is only expected to grow, especially the longer this shutdown drags on, Lindsay.
Yeah, major concerns across the board. Rachel Scott, our thanks to you. And there are horrific new images tonight of that deadly plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky. We've now learned authorities are still searching for 9 more people. Our Matt Rivers is in Louisville again tonight. Matt.
That's right, Lindsay. And tonight, officials saying that death toll has now risen to 13 people after one person that was injured and in the hospital passed away.
Tonight, 48 hours after UPS Flight 2976 lost its left engine, crashed, and exploded, investigators from multiple federal agencies are combing the half-mile-long debris field for clues and searching for 9 people still missing.
We found multiple pieces of engine fan blades, along with the main component of the engine of the number 1 engine, which is on the left side of the aircraft.
The NTSB says they successfully extracted the data from the charred flight data and cockpit voice recorders. And preliminary flight data shows the plane was 450 feet off the ground and going 210 miles an hour when it crashed. And they're poring over the multiple videos that show the plane and the explosion. Watch this dashcam video closely as the plane screams past. You can clearly see the plane's right engine intact, but the other 2 engines are gone. Experts say it's possible that when the left engine fell off, it took out the plane's center engine, leaving the plane without enough power to get airborne. At least 13 dead and at least 9 still missing.
Did everybody make it out? No. What do you mean no? No!
Sean Garber says at least 3 workers were trapped inside his scrap metal recycling facility.
2 of the ladies were in their mid-30s. One of them, unfortunately, fortunate at the time, but now was pregnant.
One of them was pregnant?
Yes.
And late today, UPS identifying the 3 crew members who died on that flight. Captain Richard Wartenberg, First Officer Lee Truitt, and International Relief Officer Captain Dana Diamond.
So tragic, and Matt joins us now once again from Louisville, Kentucky. So Matt, what else is UPS saying tonight?
Lindsay, UPS saying it extends its deepest sympathy to family members and to the Louisville community. Members of that community gathering tonight at a vigil to remember those lost in a crash that investigators are still trying to understand. Lindsay?
Matt, thanks so much. We move on now to the stunning death of a rising NFL star, the Dallas Cowboys Marshawn Kneeland, only 24 years old. Just 3 nights ago, he celebrated on the field after scoring a touchdown on Monday Night Football. But his family says he suffered a mental health crisis overnight. Our Will Reeve has more on the alarming final hours and the last text message he sent to his loved ones.
It was just 3 days ago on Monday Night Football. 24-year-old Dallas Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Kneeland scoring a touchdown.
Into the end zone in a race. And a touchdown.
Recovering a blocked punt in the end zone, celebrating with his teammates.
Kneeland the touchdown.
Tonight, his story ending in tragedy. Authorities say he led police on a chase in Texas and was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Officials say Kneeland fled from a traffic stop shortly after 10:30 last night, sparking a pursuit through the city of Frisco. Troopers losing sight of his vehicle, finding it minutes later crashed and abandoned on Dallas Parkway. Officers launching a search for Kneeland using drones and a police canine, as loved ones reportedly warned authorities of a potential crisis unfolding.
We're talking to the girlfriend. She's trying to call his agent, but we're trying to get him to call him first. But she's saying he is armed and has a history of mental illness, and her quote was, "He will end it all."
About 3 hours later, authorities finding Kneeland's body. Kneeland was a second-round pick out of Western Michigan in 2024. He had been open about his struggles over the loss of his mother, who had dreamed her son would make it to the NFL, but died suddenly just 2 months before he was drafted.
It was tough. It still is. I still go through it from time to time.
Kneeland kept his mother's memory close every day, wearing a necklace holding her ashes.
This right here, man, got her ashes. You can zoom in on that, her birthday. It's so nice, man.
And Linsey, no word yet from authorities as to why Kneeland allegedly fled that traffic stop. And tonight, if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, you can call or text the National Lifeline at 988. Linsey?
Well, thank you. Tonight, President Trump has struck a deal to lower the cost of some popular obesity drugs to as low as $150 per month, including Wegovy and Zepbound. The alarming moment in the Oval Office when one of the CEOs collapses. ABC's Mary Bruce reports from the White House.
President Trump tonight announcing a deal with pharmaceutical companies to drastically lower the prices of wildly popular weight loss drugs, Wegovy and Zepbound, making them available to millions of Americans who right now can't afford them, including many seniors on Medicare.
It's a triumph for American patients that will save lives and improve the health of millions and millions of Americans.
These drugs, known as GLP-1s, now cost more than $500 a month for people without insurance. Under Trump's new plan, starting in early next year, that price would fall to $350 a month and down to $250 within the next 2 years. The drugs will also soon be covered for Medicare patients with severe obesity, though not for everyone who is simply overweight.
Copays for Medicare patients will be as low as $50. This is tremendous savings.
And qualifying patients on Medicaid could end up paying virtually nothing. And you can guarantee the American people that once these costs go down, they're going to stay down.
There may be other manufacturing issues that can drive prices up and down, but I feel very confident that now we've set the standard. I don't think future administrations will vary on that.
Mary Bruce joins us now from the White House. Mary, tell us more about those scary moments at the White House earlier today.
Yeah, Linsey, this really was a frightening moment in the Oval Office just as this announcement was going on, an attendee collapsing. We saw Dr. Oz and others then rushing in to help. And tonight we are told that the man, a guest of one of the drug companies, is doing great and that there's nothing to be concerned about.
All right,
Linsey.
well, that is good to know. Mary, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Today, one of the most powerful figures in Democratic politics, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, announced she is retiring at the end of her current term. Pelosi is the first woman to ever serve as a Speaker of the House. The 85-year-old from California was first elected to Congress back in 1987. In a video today, she said, "With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service." And for more now, we are joined by someone who considers Nancy Pelosi her mentor, California Democratic Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs. Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you were aware of the news before today. When I say Nancy Pelosi, what are the first words that come to mind?
I think the first words that come to mind to me are strength, grit, strategic, the ability to just really find ways to get things done and always being.
We lost you there for a moment, but I think we have you back. What's the most important lesson you've learned from the first woman to be Speaker of the House?
The thing she always taught all of us is to know your why, to make sure you always know your why. And she did. For her, it was fighting for the children. And I know that I and so many of us plan on continuing that fight.
Now, of course, the government shutdown is in its record 37th day. You fly across the country a lot. Americans are getting concerned about the impacts in the sky. If you were the minority leader, how would you be handling shutdown negotiations?
Look, I think the hard part is that the Republicans won't even really come to the table and have a negotiation with us. The House, as you know, has been out for 6 weeks. We haven't even been able to get our Republican colleagues to have a conversation with us. To me, it's very simple. We are trying to reopen the government and protect people's health care and address the health care crisis that we're facing. We've been very clear about what we want, about what it will require to take our votes. And so we're in constant contact with the Senate, trying to understand what's going on there with their negotiations. But, I don't think that we can just settle for the promise of a discussion or the promise of a vote, because there's a healthcare crisis right now. Millions of Americans are going to lose their healthcare. And the promise of maybe a conversation in the future is not enough. We need to address that crisis right now.
Do you think Tuesday's election results have empowered your party to hold firm in negotiations, even though the impacts could start to get even worse?
Look, I represent San Diego, the biggest military community in the country. We've got around 50,000 federal workers. I do not take the shutdown lightly. I know it is really hurting people. But I think what we learned on Tuesday is that what people want us to focus on is the affordability of issues. And that is what we are trying to address, to make sure that people can afford the health care that they need, and to make sure that our government is actually working for people. And that's what we're going to keep fighting to do.
We saw Proposition 50 pass Tuesday night in California, and voters there, in essence, getting even with Texas. Interestingly enough, exit polls in California showed 92% of voters thought congressional districts should be generally drawn by a nonpartisan commission, not the party in power. What do you make of that result?
Look, I support independent redistricting. I know most Californians support independent redistricting. It's why in 2010 we passed a ballot proposition to make it so that that's how we draw our districts in California. But I think while we support it, and when House Democrats were in charge, we passed a bill that would have mandated independent redistricting across the whole country. That's not the world that we're in. And California voters understood that this was what we needed to do to stand up to Donald Trump and to make sure that Californian voices were heard in Washington, D.C.
And let's end where we began, with Nancy Pelosi. Have you had a chance to speak with her? Or if you haven't, when you do, what do you plan to say?
I sent her a message today, but she's quite busy. But I told her that I and so many young women across the country never had to question if we were able to lead, because we grew up seeing her do that, and that we will continue her fight for the children, and that will make her proud.
Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, we thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
A jury has awarded $10 million in a lawsuit filed by a former teacher in Virginia who was shot by a 6-year-old student. A former assistant principal is accused of ignoring multiple warnings about the child bringing a gun to school. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, a Virginia jury finding that an assistant principal failed to protect a first-grade teacher who was shot by a 6-year-old in her class.
We, the jury, on the issues joined, find in favor of the plaintiff, Abigail Zwerner, and assess her damages at $10 million.
It's a case that shocked the nation. The civil trial revealing for the first time those searing images of Abby Zwerner being raced to a hospital with a bullet inches from her heart. A bullet that remains inside her today, too dangerous to remove. Zwerner in a dramatic moment taking the stand.
I thought I had died. I thought I was either on my way to heaven or in heaven.
The jury of 3 men and 4 women agreeing with the teacher's attorneys that Assistant Principal Ebony Parker ignored repeated warnings that the child, who had a history of disruptive behavior, had brought a gun to school.
Dr. Parker's job is safety. A gun changes everything. You stop and you investigate.
Pierre Thomas joins us now. So, Pierre, what happens next in this whole saga?
Well, the legal fight over what took place that day is not over, Lindsay. The assistant principal also faces a criminal trial set to begin in just a few weeks.
Pierre Thomas for us. Thanks so much, Pierre.
Pleasure.
A dramatic showdown in the pageant world. The reigning Miss Universe and a group of Miss Universe contestants walked out in protest when the pageant director publicly berated one of the women. Here's ABC's Rhiannon Alley with more.
It's the beauty queen walkout that's gone viral online, a behind-the-scenes live stream showing several Miss Universe contestants storming out of a room on Tuesday after a pageant official berated Miss Mexico for several minutes. That official, a businessman and Thailand's Miss Universe director, accusing Mexico's Fatima Bosch of not promoting Thailand at the order of Mexican pageant organizers.
If you follow the order from your national director, you are damaged.
He then demands security remove her from the room. Miss Mexico firing back.
It's not my fault that you have problems with my organization.
Soon after, the head of the Miss Universe organization saying that official's involvement with the pageant going forward will be limited as much as possible or eliminated entirely. Overnight, that official denying he called Miss Mexico a dumbhead, but apologizing multiple times.
First, I have to apologize for the delegate. If anyone ever and not comfortable, it happened. I'm so sorry.
Linsey, after that confrontation, other contestants, including the reigning Miss Universe, came to Miss Mexico's defense. And despite the drama, that pageant is still scheduled for November 21st. Linsey?
Rhiannon, thank you. The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to move forward with new rules requiring all U.S. passports to display a citizen's biological sex assigned at birth rather than their chosen gender identity. The 6-3 ruling from the court's conservative majority overturns 2 lower court decisions and ends decades of allowing transgender Americans to update passports to match their gender identity. The new policy has prompted outrage from LGBTQ advocates who call it discriminatory and dangerous, particularly while traveling. The man dubbed the D.C. sandwich thrower has been found not guilty of misdemeanor assault. Sean Dunn had been accused of throwing a sandwich at a Customs and Border Protection agent in Washington, D.C. during the law enforcement surge over the summer. A jury acquitted him after finding he didn't intend to cause injury. After the verdict, Dunn, a former Justice Department staffer, said he was relieved and looking forward to moving on with his life. Next tonight, tracking a major Arctic blast. Bitter cold is on the way. Temperatures soon falling into the 20s, 30s, and 40s from the Midwest to the Deep South into the Northeast. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from our New York station, WABC. Hi, Lee.
Hey, Lindsay. Want to give you plenty of advance warning to this. This is early next week, so we're going to see this chill building over the Midwest over the weekend. At the same time, the East Coast is enjoying a mild weekend, 10 to 20 degrees above average, but then temperatures start to plunge. By the time we wake up Monday morning, you're looking at teens and 20s in the Midwest and sub-freezing temperatures getting way down into the Deep South. Then the core of the cold reaches the East Coast on Tuesday, near freezing temperatures along the I-95 corridor, D.C. to Boston. But how about Atlanta, 28 degrees and sub-freezing temperatures close to Florida? We should have some record chill. Montgomery, Savannah, Mobile, and Tampa could be down to 35 degrees. The good news is this is just a quick winter shock to the system as temperatures bounce back quickly by midweek. Lindsay?
All right, that's good to know. L to the G, thanks so much. Toyota is recalling more than 1 million vehicles over a defect that could cause rear-view cameras to fail, increasing the risk of a crash. The recall covers some of the automaker's most popular models, including the RAV4, Camry, Highlander, and Prius, as well as several Lexus and Subaru vehicles from model years 2022 to 2026. The software glitch can make the camera image freeze or go blank when backing up. Dealers will update the software free of charge. Coming up, the election tie broken with the luck of the draw. Plus, the Supreme Court could do away with Voting Rights Act, a law hard fought for those unable to cast a ballot. Could the eventual outcome take the country backwards?
People who fought and made the Voting Rights Act possible, first of all, I want to thank you. But it is time for us to move past this particular issue because there are other things that we need to be concerned about right now.
And the FAA made the drastic decision to cut flights by 10% at 40 major U.S. airports. So what does that mean for you, the customer? We're bringing your most asked questions to an expert, the points guy, in order to protect your next trip. Welcome back, everyone. As we reported at the top of the broadcast tonight, starting on Friday, the FAA will cut thousands of daily flights at 40 major airports because so many air traffic control workers are not reporting to work during the government shutdown. In a moment, we'll talk to Brian Kelly, who founded the Points Guy site, on how your holiday travel might be impacted. But first, tonight's By the Numbers. Airlines were given a mere 48 hours notice by the FAA and Department of Transportation to determine how they might cut flights into and out of 40 of America's most trafficked airports. Mind you, there are roughly 45,000 daily flights that must now be assessed. These run the gamut from cargo flights to commercial and also private jets. Flights will be reduced by 4% starting tomorrow, and flight reductions will top out at 10%, likely at some point next week. International flights are exempt from the cuts. The flights impacted by these reductions are domestic ones scheduled during the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Of course, not many of us will be willing to fly outside those normal hours unless we have no choice but to be on a red eye. Nearly 13,000 air traffic controllers have been working without pay now for weeks, and as of last week, nearly 50% of major ATC facilities were experiencing staffing shortages. That's according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. For more on how to navigate these travel issues, we are joined by Brian Kelly, the founder of the Points Guy. Brian, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Can you put into perspective just how much of an actual impact that cutting 10% of flights at these 40 major airports will have?
This is going to be huge. So on a given day in the U.S., there might be 100 to 200 flights canceled. This is going to be 4,000. And mind you, that it's not just canceled flights. Because of these canceled flights, there's going to be thousands more delays as well. And by the way, the 10% is just a starting point. They could ramp that up as more and more controllers call out.
Do we have a sense of how much of a heads up? Like, is this, I get to the airport, I'm ready to get on the flight, and an hour before it's going to show up canceled on the board?
You know, everything in aviation is a snowball effect. So the airlines are going to do the best they can to contact you if your flight's canceled. But if you book through an online travel agency, a credit card portal, your airline may not have your contact information. So it is critical for everyone who's traveling. Don't go to the online travel agency. Go to your airline. Make sure they have your correct contact information and act quickly.
Are there certain trips where you won't have to worry about your flight being impacted by this?
Yeah, international trips, also hub to hub. So if you're flying from Newark to Denver or those cross-country flights, in general, those big plane, expensive flights, Caribbean, those are not going to be canceled. Even New York to Florida. If you're flying on a mainline jet, it's the smaller regional flights. It's the New York to Boston's I would worry about. If you're on the East Coast, I highly recommend taking the train.
Now, this one kind of surprised me. The CEO of Frontier Airlines recently said that travelers should actually book backup tickets on other carriers in the event that their flight gets canceled. Would you recommend doing something that's so drastic and expensive?
Well, I was shocked to hear an airline CEO say that, because I always give that tip as a travel expert. And this is where frequent flyer miles are invaluable. So little known fact, you can book another flight on another airline using your frequent flyer miles and then cancel for free up until departure. So you just have to remember to cancel. No flight goes out, you can go online or in your app and get your miles back and all your taxes.
That is so interesting. I never knew that up until the day you could actually cancel and get all of your points refunded. So that's a great little nugget there. Are there specific types of airline fares or tickets to buy to protect yourself in case of a cancellation, and any to avoid?
The airlines have come out and said that they will refund or allow people to change for free. But, not every airline's being so generous, and you may have to fight to get your money back. So when possible, book refundable tickets. And also, I think travel insurance is big here.
So let's say that you didn't use the right credit card, and let's say that you didn't get the insurance on your trip. What are you entitled to if your flight gets canceled?
A refund. That's basically, you can go, the DOT has a customer service dashboard. Some airlines might give you hotel, but in general, no airline is going to pay for, hotel. This is where being nice, being proactive. If you have a non-refundable hotel or vacation rental that you can't make, call and ask nicely, see if they'll give a refund. If not a refund, can I come back again in the future?
And let's say your flight is not canceled. We've certainly seen longer security wait times and other flight delays caused by air traffic controllers, staffing shortages. How should people prepare to fly while this shutdown continues?
Well, I absolutely recommend getting, TSA pre-check at a minimum. TSA pre-check will save you. We saw in Houston this week, huge line. But patience, instead of getting to the airport 2 hours before departure, I recommend 2 hours before your boarding starts.
Right.
So give yourself extra time, get pre-check, get clear. And also I really go to the bathroom before your flight takes off, because in so many airports, especially New York and the East Coast, you might be taxiing for an hour to two. So water, snacks, go to the bathroom, and pack a good attitude.
Always good advice from you, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, the National Toy Hall of Fame announces its newest class of inductees. But why was Ooey Gooey Slime one of them? But first, the critical case before the Supreme Court that could gut a key part of the Voting Rights Act. Our Steve Osunsami reports from North Carolina and talks to one woman who was part of the original fight. Welcome back, everyone. This week, voters in several states went to the ballot boxes. For some, including African Americans, the privilege to exercise those rights was a decades-long and hard-fought battle leading to the Voting Rights Act. Now the Supreme Court is deciding on a case that could do away with it altogether. While some think it's no longer necessary, many who were on the front lines of the fight feel after all their hard work, we're now going backward. Our senior national correspondent, Steve Osunsami, has this story.
Miss Walina Cannon is one of those people who she says God is blessed to still walk this earth, who had a fist in the fight for the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
How many times were you arrested?
Arrested? Oh, in my whole life, 19. I've been to jail 19 times, and they're all my trophies.
They're all your trophies for fighting the good fight. So you have a record.
Yes, yeah.
Today, she's 85 years young. In Greensboro, North Carolina, shaking her same fist at a cancer that doctors say will surely end her life in the next few months. Back in 1964, she was a student trying to change the world at North Carolina A&T, the same college where a young Jesse Jackson was her student council president.
Tell me, what was it like to vote back then?
When I was 18 and went down to the poll, what are you doing here? I said, I'm gonna vote. Who? Vote? For who? So they said stuff like that to scare you. And I voted and answered their question.
They asked you questions?
Yeah.
They gave you a test?
Yes. And then they let you vote.
Recite the Constitution's preamble.
She says it was very much like this famous scene in the movie Selma, where a black voter, played by Oprah Winfrey, has to suffer what many at the time felt were perfectly acceptable rules in American democracy.
How many county judges in Alabama? 67. Name them.
It was to scare you to leave, and Lord knows it worked well with most people.
But it didn't work with her. She fought and trained with civil rights workers, seen here preparing themselves for being slapped and beaten. She resisted police and ran from their dogs. And she says today she's worried that all that blood and tears spent getting the Voting Rights Act passed is now just months away from being spent in vain.
You look at the Supreme Court, the chances of them killing that is so great. It's like, oh my God, we've been through this.
In 2013, in a 5-4 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court took the first hammer to the Voting Rights Act, striking down an important part of the law that forced states and local governments, most of them in the South, to get federal permission before changing the way people vote. And as we've reported in an investigation from our ABC News and OWN Station's data team, nearly 20% of American polling places have closed since that change, many of them in majority Black and brown communities. A much more conservative court is now considering throwing out the law altogether. Just last month, the signs were clear in a case from Louisiana that some of the justices feel that America no longer needs the law.
Race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint.
Troy Rowling in Michigan is a proud Black American with a daughter attending historically Black Howard University and says he agrees with ending the Voting Rights Act entirely.
People who fought and made the Voting Rights Act possible, first of all, I want to thank you. But it is time for us to move past this particular issue because there are other things that we need to be concerned about right now.
He's a former state vice chair in the Republican Party, a supporter of the president, and the head of a Black political action group. He argues that the magnitude of racism from the 50s and 60s doesn't exist today, and that Black Americans are voting and getting elected like never before.
So when you look at what happened in 1964 and 1965, the cannons, Bloody Sunday, and all the rest, and you walk into a room and you see a room full of Black folk, minority, or whatever in that room voting, it's a celebration point. You should be able to say, we got the W and move forward.
What do you say to people who say, you know, the racism of yesterday isn't around anymore?
I say to people, this is taking you back. And they're going back in stages to take this, less voting places and make it harder you. They don't say you can't vote, but they fix it where, in a lot of instances, you can't vote.
What the Supreme Court is doing and what this administration is doing is selecting the voters that they think are the ones that should be voting. We can't have that.
Marika Olson says she's very much her father's daughter, putting up a fight for the same law. He was a white preacher from California, and she was 4 years old when he answered the call of Dr. Martin Luther King, traveling to Selma to fight for voting rights, where he nearly died. Walking back from dinner one night, a group of men connected to the Ku Klux Klan beat him and another white minister with all they had, killing his friend. We met him near that same road a few years before he passed.
Do you ever forget that day?
No. No.
Still hits you.
It's become a very important day in my life.
My father and millions like him put their bodies on the line to bring forth the Voting Rights Act. But I think at this moment, we have to think about that phrase that Martin Luther King is often quoted as saying, which is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The part to focus on is that it's long.
So you are in hospice now?
Yeah, I have 3 to 6 months. And I'm okay with that. I can walk and go other places.
And today you're going to vote?
Yes. Why not?
The voting precinct that was walking distance from her home closed years ago. So her children drove her downtown for what may be the last time she casts her vote.
I can walk just as fast as you can.
You are doing good. Yeah, look at you.
Hello?
I need your ID.
I definitely should be on the books. I voted all my life.
She says to remind American voters that no matter what anyone throws in the way, she's proof that it can be overcome.
They must vote and overcome all of that to vote. Otherwise, we're going backwards fast and helping them take us back. Voting is key.
As we often say, your voice, your vote. Our thanks to Steve Osinsami for that. Coming up, what do you do when an election ends in a tie? The creative way one community decided on a winner. He's one of the most notable rappers in the game, but his influence doesn't just end with the music. G Herbo joins us to talk about his new album and why he's such an advocate for mental health. The election tie that's being settled by the draw of a card. Hockey history made on the ice by a legendary player. And from a game of strategy to a goopy classic, the toys that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. An election in a small town in Nevada was decided with a very Vegas spin, with a high card draw. Two candidates running for local election were tied after all the ballots were counted with 67 votes each. A coin toss determined who would pick first, and a fresh deck of cards was fanned across the table. Carl Kopech and Seth Schrenzel picked their cards, with Schrenzel drawing a 7 and Kopech drawing a 5, meaning that Schrenzel will serve as a trustee on the 4-member local board that governs the small town of Gerlach. Prince William walked in the footsteps of his mother, the late Princess Diana, while visiting Brazil this week. William posed in front of the Christ the Redeemer statue, which towers over Rio de Janeiro, more than 3 decades after Diana did the same while visiting Brazil. Diana traveled to the country in 1991 on an official visit with William's father, King Charles III, then Prince Charles. A royal spokesperson told reporters that the prince was struck by the number of people who fondly remember his mother's visit to this beautiful city.
Can you lower the lights for me, please?
Okay, but remember, in here, keep those feet still, my man.
Lionsgate released the first trailer for the Michael Jackson biopic titled Michael. The film will chronicle the early days of the pop superstar, who is played by the late singer's real-life nephew, Jafar Jackson. The film is being produced with the blessing of the Jackson estate and is set to release in theaters and IMAX next spring. One of the strongest geomagnetic storms of the year will create auroras in a large swath of the northern continental U.S., possibly even as far as Oregon and Illinois. 24 states could see the northern lights as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Space Weather Prediction Center is tracking 4 notable eruptions of plasma and magnetic fields from the sun's corona that happened earlier this week. The National Hockey League now has a 900-goal club, and the founding member is future Hall of Famer Alex Ovechkin. The left winger was stalking the puck in the offensive zone when a rebound came his way. Ovechkin backhanded the puck past a sliding goalie, and the Washington Capitals bench cleared to celebrate the historic moment. The National Toy Hall of Fame announced its 2025 inductees, with familiar favorites like Battleship and Trivial Pursuit joining the ranks of legendary toys which came before them. In addition to the games of skill inducted, the Ooey Gooey toy, introduced commercially as slime back in 1976, was also enshrined in toy history, with experts calling it a meaningful form of play that builds motor skills and reduces stress. Voting is done by the public and a panel of experts every year to determine which toys get into the Hall of Fame. The honorees will be on permanent display at the Hall of Fame inside the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. Now to tonight's Prime Playlist Shuffle, where we sit down with artists who are transforming the music industry. Rapper G Herbo has evolved from Chicago teenage drill prodigy to a global star during his 15-year career. 4 of his albums have reached Billboard's top 200, including his album PTSD, where he went triple platinum in 2020. He's also a respected voice in his Chicago community and beyond, advocating for and providing better mental health services, especially for younger people. He returns now to his roots with a new studio album titled Lil Herb, featuring the hit single Whatever You Want with singer Jeremiah. Let's take a listen.
What is on your mind? Talk to me in private. Gotta have your mind right if you gonna be mine. All I want is your attention. I'm practicing lines. Always gonna complete the mission. Give me my assignment.
Joining us now, rapper G Herbo. So good to have you here in studio.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you for joining us. So let's just help us to understand. We used to know you as Lil Herb, then you matured into G Herbo, but then you titled the new album Lil Herb. Why decide to kind of go back to the past?
It was a decision I made because I just wanted to like kind of go back and reflect on everything that it took for me to get to this stage that I am now, like in my life and career, with just being a man and maturity and just trying to find that hunger that I once had, where it was just me just having fun with rap, you know, and being able to be so relatable to the world. That's why I named it Lil Herb, just going back and just trying to get in touch with my old roots.
And you also, speaking of old roots, used a picture of yourself as a young man. We see right here on the cover. Tell us about this picture and what advice you would give to your younger self here.
That picture is, I think I was about maybe 10, 11, something like that.
A mugshot
that
at
was
10 or 11.
my first mugshot. And that kid, he didn't have the vision to know that he could, you know, change the world with his art, you know, because I knew how to rap even back then. I just, you know what I'm saying, I didn't really understand what it took to get to this point. And if I could go back and talk to my younger self, it would just be to believe, you know what I'm saying, and have a certain kind of determination where I wouldn't have made a lot of the mistakes that I did make, you know. And I don't believe in coincidences. I'm a firm believer that, you know, the path that I chose got me here today. But if I knew what I knew now back then, a lot would be different for sure.
You sing a lot about the trials and tribulations growing up in Chicago. Even one of your albums is called PTSD. Is it therapeutic? Is it cathartic to write about hard times and put it into music?
Definitely. For me, music has always been like a form of therapy for me. And I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I might have had it for more than half of my life and didn't even understand what mental health was or the importance of actually going to get help for the things and the trauma that I did experience in my life. It's something that is very important to me because it's a part of my journey. You know what I'm saying? It's a part of what made me the man that I am today.
You talked earlier about how you were diagnosed with PTSD. You talk a lot about mental health. You put it in your music, in rap music, that often is a place where talking about therapy is taboo. What made you decide, you know what, I need to actually be an advocate here?
I feel like someone like myself who's experienced it and being able to be on the front line and the forefront to, you know, show these kids that, you know, it's a way out, that you can want better, you can do better, you can get help. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel. It's okay to not understand the feelings and the emotions that you are, you know, going through and experiencing. That's why it's important to me, because I know you can't save them all, but if you could save a few,
that's right.
I did my job.
Thank you for all that you are doing for the community.
Appreciate
and continued success to you, G Herbo. Thank you so much for coming by the show.
Thanks for having me.
You can listen to his new studio album, Lil Herb, beginning tomorrow, November 7th, wherever you stream your music. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.